Coming to you from AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, this is The Gaily Show, also streaming right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at The Gaily Show. I am your host, John Parker. It is Friday, which means culture and entertainment, and we need that now more than ever after the week we had. What is on the show today? Craig Johnson returns with his new production of Proof at the Gremlin Theatre in Minneapolis. But up first, friend of the Gaily Show, Amy Spalding, is back with a brand new novel, On Her Terms. I'm holding it up for the folks on YouTube. It is as delightful as its bright yellow cover. Amy Spalding is the author of several novels, including the best-selling For Her Consideration, We Used to Be Friends, and The Summer of Jordi Perez and the Best Burger in Los Angeles, which was named a Best Book of 2018 by NPR, the Boston Globe, Kirkus Reviews, and more. Amy's new book, On Her Terms, is out now. Amy, welcome back to The Gaily Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this. All right, let's get into it. On Her Terms, new novel. Tell us about it.
Yes, On Her Terms is a queer romance novel. And I will just say, for people who love to hear about the tropes, this is a fake dating book. So if that's some people, that's literally all they need to hear. They're like, great, I'm in. Where's it for sale? It's for sale anywhere. Great, I'm going to go buy it now. So for you people, I know you're already clicking a link or running off to the nearest Barnes & Noble or Tropes and Trifles in Minneapolis. And I can't always specialize this much. I was just there last week, so I feel like very, very local. But it's about a woman, Clementine, who's been in a relationship with a man basically since college. And she's always known she's bisexual, but she's never really had a chance to explore that because she was in this relationship. But when she realizes he really wants sort of like that life of like, you know, a couple of kids, a backyard, house in the suburbs, all of that. She does not want that. She breaks up with him and is like, what is my life going to be now that I've burned it all down? And that is where we open with this book. She had met this woman a few times before, Chloe, and they run into each other, and the various reasons they decide it would be good to have a fake girlfriend for, you know, things like a date for your friend's wedding. So, you know, your brother and sister-in-law don't act like you're a pathetic person at your parents' anniversary party, etc. And so they concoct this plan, which obviously often people in novels fake date because it is easier than just having a conversation about admitting you like each other.
All right. First of all, I am not going to be upset at all that you were in Minneapolis and didn't tell me about that. So I'm just going to, deal with that on my own
I forget you're like a human and not just a person in a box on the internet. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's more incumbent on me to make sure that, hey, our guest's coming to Minneapolis. But you spend a lot of time creating Clementine for us, portraying all the fun and sometimes that is being a baby gay. Was there anything that surprised you as you were writing that experience that came up for you that maybe you weren't expecting?
You know, ultimately, what I really wanted to get across was that for a lot of people I know, myself included, like coming out, especially if you're like not a child, you know, like when you're young, I feel like there's sort of like a way it goes. But when you're in like your 20s or your 30s and you're like an adult, especially I think like for bisexual people, it can just be awkward because they have like an idea of like who they think you are because of like who they've seen you date. And then you're like, no, but also other people. And it's like an awkward conversation to have. But I also found that mostly, you know, I live in Los Angeles, people were really welcoming, people were really nice, and including the, you know, the queer community. Many of like I think if you're also an adult who comes out, a lot of times people in your own life already know, you just haven't done it on a large scale. But I really wanted to talk about the fact that it often is not, it's an awkward experience, but people are welcoming. And, you know, there's a lot of biphobia in the queer community, but I personally haven't dealt with a lot of it. And I wanted to kind of show that like really nice feeling of like, oh no, these people get you and they like you. You just have to show up and be yourself. Like if you're worried about how to fit in with queer people, but you are a queer person, like good news, you are already doing it.
Something I noticed as I was reading the book was, when you watch your Heartstoppers, or your Heartbreak Highs, like they all seem to know the lingo and the identities and they just sort of roll with it. I love how in the novel, everyone's always kind of checking in and clarifying and affirming their identities and their likes and desires. Like even like halfway into the book, like Chloe is talking about like, oh, I'm not aromantic. And I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how you were choosing to write that experience of engaging with identities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a really nice thing for the queer community is like we have to have those conversations by virtue of like not being, like when you're counterculture versus culture, you
Hmm.
like if you have to define who you are, you're used to having those conversations. So it's like if you've already come out as queer, you may be coming out as other things. Like we won't get into it, but maybe in the bedroom, there's certain things you have to talk about if you're into this or that, or both or neither. And so
Hmm.
I just think for queer people, you're kind of used to having more conversations, which I think is, by the way, I think is great. And I think, you know, straight people start having more conversations about like what you're into, what you're not into, what you expect from romantic partners. It can be great, also awkward. But I do think that there's a certain amount of communication you just have to have that's sort of inherent because you aren't doing whatever is expected or whatever is sort of like stereotypical. And I loved Clementine sort of getting thrown into this because, she's just been with this guy for like nearly 20 years and he assumed he knew what she wanted because isn't that what everyone wants? And it
Hmm.
wasn't. And the thing is, it's also sort of the lesson of like, if you'd been good at that communication with him, you guys would have figured that out quite a while ago that you were headed in different paths and maybe had a less upsetting ending. So I don't know. I think it's a good lesson for everyone, but I really wanted to show how those conversations, also how they can just be really organic and natural and not
Hmm.
like some big, like, now is a special moment where we talk about our identities and feelings. It's just part of life.
That's what you kind of like sprinkled it in there and didn't make it like like a major, like a coming out moment. But as a writer, I love the alphabet. And I get kind of annoyed when people are like, "Oh, no, there's another, like, letter in the alphabet." And I'm like, "Yeah, because we understand the complexities and beauty of gender and sexuality, and it's not
Yes,
just,
yes.
black and white." How do you feel about that as a writer, as you're writing all these amazing queer novels?
Yeah, I think I just want to write the world that I actually see reflected, and that includes people of a lot of different kinds of identities. And to me, that's just regular. Like I don't,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
certainly not I'm not making like a chart of like make sure there is a pansexual person and a bisexual person and like a lesbian and someone who didn't know she was a lesbian but is now. Like I don't have a secret queer like alphabet list. But what I do have is real life friends and communities. And when I think about who's in those, the kind of people I spend time with, those are the kind of groups I'm also going to be crafting on the page because that's what, if I'm writing, these queer friend groups in Los Angeles, which is a thing I also have, I don't want it to seem like some weird book version of this. I want it to seem like real life to me. And real life is like messy and it overlaps and you get people of all different identities and often those identities are fluid and changing over time. And I think, in my friend groups, we all just are like, oh, I'm feeling more this than that now. Okay, great.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, Talk to me about the fake relationship as a device. What was the Amy Spalding take on the fake relationship story?
First of all, I will say I love a fake relationship story. I like every version of them that's ever been written. If you've written one, I liked it. You can just take the compliment. If you're thinking about writing one, I already like it. Write it. I think it's so silly because I don't think a lot of people do this, and I just don't think it happens a lot. Like even if you're like, I'm going to bring someone as my plus one, so like people are nice to me at a wedding. You don't normally go through the effort of being like, we are in a fake relationship, and here's how we met, and here's all this. Like you usually just bring them, and if someone asks about them, you're kind of like non-committal, or you're just like, oh, I brought a
Mhm.
friend. Who cares? So first of all, I love that it feels fake. Like it feels fake in a way that like we don't do it in real life. And for me, the Amy Spalding take was I didn't want to have a super elaborate version. I wanted the version where it's very much like we're fake dating, but also they're just kind of dating. They're just hanging out and going places together. And just because they're like not kissing at first, it's like, how is this that different than dating? It's just like two people really taking their time. Which, like I said, I felt like my version was just like two people who are so bad with their own feelings that they couldn't just say, "Hey, I'm interested in you and like would like to go on a real date." Too high stakes. So how could you ever ask someone that? So I liked exploring like what kind of like what would this be like if this was like actually happening to you? How would you navigate it?
I was thinking about prepping for the interview that I haven't done that. Like can you go to, a wedding or, whatever, a funeral with me because, I want to have a plus one. And I say funeral because I actually had a friend come with me to a funeral and we did not say that we were fake dating, but everyone assumed that we were. And so the whole thing, like I was suddenly, a week later in a relationship with somebody because, dude, and this person was a woman. And so they just assumed because I wasn't
Yep.
out to them yet. And so I was actually in a fake relationship because of everybody else.
I've heard this from so many people, or like they're like, they just did it sort of like that of like, yeah, I just said it was my date because like sometimes it was like easier than coming out. You bring someone of a gender people aren't expecting and then they know. But then like people keep following up on the relationship and being like, how's it going? What's happening? And I've certainly had that happen too, where I just like bring a plus one. I don't say anything. I just assume that like it's clear it's like a platonic situation. And then like, oh, who'd you bring? What was that about? And I'm like, people are very eager to like attach meaning to just you would like a friend to benefit from like free food or for you to have company during an awkward event.
Right? And frankly, it's the straights. It's a conspiracy. Because every time I've gone to a straight wedding, I feel like this always happens if I'm there with somebody else.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just and maybe because the whole thing is like a celebration of love and everybody needs to be partnered.
Everyone's like, look
And
at
this
that
is
man and woman. We see you. You're a man with a woman. Feels like your time is next. One time I was
right.
at a party and like it was like a dance thing where we all had to like line up and then when you got to the end, whoever you were like next to, you had to like dance with to the end of the line and then go back around. And so I like just had to dance down with some random man. And then everyone was like, are you guys going to get serious? I was like, I literally danced with him for about 7 seconds. No, I did not get his name. What?
Yeah, yeah. Or the times I have gone solo, the inevitable. It's just like a grilling when you're there. Like, why don't you have a partner? Why are you with somebody? What's
It's
going
always
on?
such
Who
a
are you
weird question
seeing?
too, because I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm great. You tell me why I'm single.
You tell what's your hypothesis?
Yeah, let's let's get my therapist on speakerphone and see what she thinks.
We're gonna have to fit in a break here. The novel is On Her Terms with Amy Spalding. Amy, I love talking with you. We're going to include a link. We have included rather a link in the show notes and on our website. So if you want to buy your own copy, you can do that. And as we go into the break, please support our sponsors and our advertisers. They make conversations like what we're having with Amy right now possible. So when you visit them and do your business with them, tell them you heard about them on The Gaily Show. Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm John Parker. We are here with Amy Spalding. Amy was a recipient of the 2023 Human Rights Campaign Visibility Award for the authentic, funny, and diverse representation of the LGBTQ plus community in her books. Her newest novel, On Her Terms, is out now. Amy, I want to ask you, there was this great sentence. So we were talking before the break about, the fake relationship storyline. And Clementine asks later in the book, does this mean you just wanted to make sure I got this experience while I'm fake dating you? And I don't know why that stuck with me so much, but it was a sort of like idea of, when you are a baby gay, are folks giving you experiences or telling things to you because you're a baby gay or because, this is
Yeah,
what they actually mean?
it's like they want to curate some sort of like now that you're out, what will your life be? Let's get into all these things. And first of all, I do want to say I don't think Chloe's in any way organized enough to have actually planned a nice like first few months of queer life for Clementine. Too chaotic. But yeah, I think I really liked writing about how in your head it can make you, especially if you kind of feel like you know who you are your whole life, but now you're having to talk about it to other people. You're having to sort of be vulnerable on Maine, which I
Mm-hmm.
think we can agree is horrible. If you're a well-adjusted person, you don't think that. I will say I'm Gen X and a double Scorpio, so I can't think of anything worse than like talking about my feelings. It's disgusting.
Now, see, I'm a Cancer,
So you
so
are all feelings, right? Just all feelings all the time. My dad was a Cancer, and I knew how he felt about everything, including things I don't think your daughter should have to know. But Mark Spalding was big on emotions.
I'm like I'm an Armenian Midwestern Cancer though. So like with the Armenian, if there are unpleasant things, this is the Armenian side of it. Everybody knows about it. And on other feelings, I'm sort of like that Midwestern, like,
Like it's
I'll
fine.
keep a
It's
lid
fine.
on this.
Yeah. I yes, also deeply Midwestern here. So just because I live in LA, I'm from St. Louis. So yeah. It's like
Oh.
just keep that to yourself. Oh, you're not dying at this exact moment, then shut up. You're good. So yeah, I liked challenging someone who sort of was built that way too, to have to. Also, so is Chloe. So the two of these women just sort of like realizing how hard they are making their own lives just by virtue of like not wanting to have like slightly uncomfortable conversations, and how everyone else around them, all their friends, all their family members are much better at this part, are much better at talking about it. And they're just sort of like, you two dummies will get it together. We're not too worried, which I think is the best way to be supportive. Is just, there's a group chat you're not involved in, and they're probably all going, oh, these two just need to talk better.
I love the sentiment you have. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but the sentiment of, you don't necessarily have to worry. You're going to stumble into what you needed anyway. And I really like that you had there. But I don't want to give spoilers. What I did want to ask you about
I will say,
is,
I sort of feel like when I hear that, I'm like, that's sort of what I feel like all my main characters are going through in all my books, is like sort of the like they've got a plan or they have no plan, but either way, what they're getting is not what they expected, but it's like
Mhm.
correct for them.
Yes,
Which
exactly.
I think is life, right? Like I think like trying to like go too much on what you think is supposed to happen is often just going to lead you to disappointment or frustration, and like being a little more open to see where things take you, so much healthier.
I think that could be the name of my like career memoir. Like everything's just sort of like I stumble into a new room. I'm like, ooh, this is
Yeah.
fun. Let's talk about
Yes.
this.
I think there should be room. Like there's so like when we make room for like mistakes are not the worst thing, or just sort of like
Mhm.
flailing can like get you somewhere exciting. But it's hard. I think we're all, especially with social media, you feel like you have to be on, you have to feel
Mhm.
like you're making these purposeful choices that make sense. When I think about being younger and just sort of like, yeah, stumbling around, often I found some great stuff.
Yes. I liked how Clementine expressed the idea of Chloe's friends are all doing very different things with their lives, but that they're sort of all in it together. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I really wanted to write about sort of the part of adulthood where the choices you make are different enough that it can kind of take your life away from each other. I was reading a lot of, culture pieces, like my friend had a baby and now she won't talk to me, or like I had a baby and my friend won't, a lot of stuff about babies, and a lot of stuff about like career differences, people thinking about moving, people like different priorities. And it really struck me that I kind of expected my adult life to be more like that, and it hadn't been. And I think it's in some ways because queer communities are so already focused on chosen family, on prioritizing friendships, even when you are someone who has a significant other and a nuclear family, etc. And so I thought, like, oh, like we're all doing that work anyway. And I think that's what sort of like means, like I didn't lose anyone because I had a baby and didn't think I was worth talking to anymore,
Mhm.
or just that our lives were too different to get along. And
Mhm.
I thought, like, oh, it's a nice lesson for a character to learn that like the reason you feel distance from your friends isn't because they're doing different things. It's because you guys aren't working at it right now. And friendship
Mhm.
is also it's a relationship that has to be nurtured.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so getting to write about like what that looks like, and for her to be thrown into this, Chloe's chosen family and these people who are like so deeply committed to each other despite the rest of their lives. It gives her this like new path forward of like, well, sure, I can have this, but also like I could make this happen with the people who I already have, and I'm not.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, as I was reading it, and maybe this is just my own like bias, but every time they started the baby talk, I was like, ugh, babies, effing babies, friendship killers.
I know. And like when I mean, when I was younger, I feel like I 100% felt that way. And then like,
Yeah, I know.
really cool people in my life had babies and like were not friendship killers. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's almost like when everyone tries and gives people room to be
Hmm.
different and make different choices and still be there for each other. It's actually really awesome. And also I want really cool people to have babies that is better than the alternate. So like
Yes.
what am I fighting this for?
Yes. Exactly. No, I loved that the way that you talk about maintaining and creating, families of choice and keeping that going. And I also loved the group chat that you had going on in there. That was hilarious.
I think in this day and age, an important part of any group of friends is the group chat. I don't know about
Hmm.
you. That is very much true for me. They usually have their own titles. They usually have like we have specific memes that we associate with that group chat. So it's like I can't not have that in a book. It's very important to me.
No, and I love the way even the way you structured it in the text itself was very organic and very funny, and functioned exactly the way that a group text chat works. So, Amy Spalding, I love talking to you. And so when your next book comes out, you're a friend of the show. I want to see you again. And the next time you're in Minneapolis, like let me know. Jeez,
Yeah,
I'm joking.
I was literally there last week, and I'm really sad that we, for some reason, did not think about it. But yeah, I plan on coming back. I have the final book and the Out in Hollywood. It's a real loose series. You can read them in any order. Everyone, do not start. I can feel you all panicking through the radio. You're like about to buy this one. You put it down. No, you read them out of order. Nothing bad will happen. It's a very loose series. But the last one comes out next year. I plan to be back in Minneapolis because I love it there. And I love this new store trope. I don't know how new they are, but newish tropes and trifles. They are incredible. So I would love to come back and let's try to maybe we can meet IRL.
Yes, definitely IRL. Well, the book is On Her Terms. Links to buying it in our show notes and on our website. We'll also put in links to all of the ways that you can connect with Amy on the interwebs. Break here, more to come on The Gaily Show. Broadcasting from AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is The Gaily Show. I am John Parker, your host. Hello to those of you on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at The Gaily Show. In studio, joining me now is our executive producer, Jim Pounds. Welcome,
Hey,
Jim.
hey there.
And not only do we feature LGBTQ themed culture and entertainment on the show, but we also like to celebrate queer creators in all of their endeavors. So I'm very happy to welcome back friend of the show, Craig Johnson. Craig is a Minneapolis based theater director, actor, teacher, writer, and acting coach with over 250 production credits to his name at many theaters locally and across the country. He is directing Proof, which opens at the Gremlin Theatre in St. Paul on March 7th, which is today, actually, and it runs through March 30th. I love this play. I auditioned for it once a long time ago in a land far, far away for Hal. But the part I really wanted actually was Claire. Ugh. But Mary Louise Parker got a Tony for it when it played on Broadway in 2000. And it also won Best Play. But hi, Craig, welcome back to The Gaily Show.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you once again. I love that story. Do you mean Catherine, the lead, or Claire, her older sister, who come? Which part did you want to go for?
I'm missing up. No, Mary Louise Parker's role. Who
Right.
is exactly who I
Okay.
assumed that I just conflate that with. But yeah, not Claire,
Right.
Catherine. Yes.
That's great because I would like to play Claire, who is the fussy older sister who comes in and has lots of good ideas. And why can't things just get cleaned up and put back into order? That's a little more my speed, too. So I'm looking forward to our production of it, John.
We're going to do an all gay cast of Proof.
Nobody will complain about that.
We can make this play gay. Watch us.
Yeah.
Well, for folks who are like, what are they talking about right now? Walk us through what Proof is about.
Proof was written by David Auburn in 2000. And it's the story of a young woman, Catherine, who is struggling with both the fact that how to deal with her relationship with her genius father and whether she may have inherited the same genius herself, or whether it may also come with the same kind of mental illness that has plagued her father. And so the play looks at that just in terms of Catherine's character portrait and her emergence into her own identity, and as she can move into, what it means to be her authentic self. Now that sounds maybe a little bit vague, and the fact that it's dealing with, math geniuses and things like that, it looks at that a kind of striking psychological condition where there have been a number of math geniuses throughout history who have, John Nash might be one of the most famous ones, who not only has this extraordinary ability to see complex patterns in numerology, in numbers, and but that is also accompanied by some strain that develops through their lifetime of like bipolar or schizophrenia. It doesn't happen to everyone. So you can think of somebody like Albert Einstein, whose like greatest work, E=mc² and such, happened when he was very young, which is often the case, that you have these people who are in their early to mid 20s who come up with these genius theories. And then as they go through life, they may just plateau, and they may be they might be able to sort of function well in society. Einstein is certainly one of those who did and contributed meaningfully throughout his whole life. But there's this strain of mental instability that does tend to pop up. And so the hero of this play, Catherine, in Proof, is wondering where she might land on that spectrum. Wow. Does she embrace her genius? Does she try to avoid it? Does she suppress it? And what does it mean to live into our authentic self?
Am I right, Craig, that you've directed this multiple times? Or is this your first time?
Jim, this is the very first time that I've directed.
Oh, wow.
Here is the interesting story behind that, though. You know that I've been teaching this directing class at the University of Minnesota for a number of years, and Proof is a really standard college curriculum play because it's mainly about younger adults with a lot of two-person realistic scenes. So it's really easy to do in acting class, in directing class. So for 3 years, I have been watching scenes from Proof over and over and over. I just thought, like, I have got to do this play to get this out of my system.
Yeah, it's like,
and I don't mean to say, like, listen, students, this is how it's done. I mean exactly the opposite. I mean that the people that I've had in class have shown me this little aspect of a character, this little thing in the scene, this little way to like handle a problem. So in my heart, I'm just like went into this project, and I still think of this like I owe this play to all of the students and all of the scenes that I've looked at. I'm going to even press that just like one thing further. I have them do a quiz on Proof when they read it, just to make sure all of those students have read the play, their due diligence on it, so we can talk about it in class. And there was one student, Tucker Waltenbaugh, who said, like, I love this play because the relationships are so messy. I love that as a phrase. He was absolutely right that the characters in the play are trying so hard to help one another and to love one another, but they keep putting their foot in their mouth. It's just they just keep stepping into it time after time again. But they keep talking about these mathematical proofs, these formula and these theorems that in some sense sort of reveal a universe, that kind of pull back a veil on just like, how does all of creation kind of work? They see something and they talk about the mathematical proofs. If I can find it, it is elegant. It is like music. It's like something perfect in the world. Even though their lives are so imperfect, they have this genius ability to touch something that most of us could never understand and know. And so it's for people like Tucker and all of the other students that have just like kept this play with me.
Do you think any of those students will come see this production? Are you in contact with any of them?
Well, I'll tell you two things. All of the ones who are currently enrolled in the class are required to come see it.
Yeah, twice.
So they have to. In addition to that, there's the guy playing Hal, Colson Eldridge, took the class a couple years ago. He's now graduated from the BFA program, and he came and auditioned, and we just laugh about it every night because we keep referring to, well, back in directing class, he's been in so many scenes from Proof, but just like talking to him last night, he said, like, it's amazing. I'm like not tired of this play. I'm not tired of the characters. I find new things every night. There is something about this play. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's an incredibly satisfying play. It's just you get to the end of it and you think like, well, what is it actually about it? It doesn't have a complex plot. You don't need to know a lot about math. There's quite a bit of humor in it. There's some romance, but I think it's mainly because it is a surprisingly hopeful story about people who care about one another and about how they pull one another forward through life. And I think that's the reason, like the original production, like John, you were referencing Mary Louise Parker, who played it, that production ran 917 performances on Broadway. It still remains the longest running Broadway play, as opposed to musical, in the 21st century.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there've been a couple of like Peter and the Starcatcher and The Play That Goes Wrong, but those succeeded, ran longer because they transferred off Broadway. They moved to a smaller house, but this one kept going. And so I think there's really a reason that people are drawn to it, that it ran so long, that it won the Tony Award, the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, because it contains, there's something that people are really drawn to in the human spirit underneath all of these characters.
Right. And in an unusual set, I mean, this is a pretty unusual setup, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's not a sort of traditional setup to be talking about mathematics and mental illness, and it's just a combination of things that you don't typically see.
That people typically would run away from for their evening's entertainment. But I think because of the fact, it's just like, you don't need a lot of math. But on the other side, just in the reading that I've done, I've listened to a number of interviews with mathematicians, which is not the kind of thing I normally do. But they said, like, what, the math in this play is really good. It's very understandable. You don't need to know anything, but it's all right on point.
That's good.
And the psychologists who have said, like, yep, this is a good description of it without it getting clinical. It stays at a story level that people can appreciate and understand. It's that ability of this play to sort of walk that line that invites everyone in and doesn't exclude anyone in the storytelling kind of mode.
Right.
So I really admire it and continue to do so.
Did you pursue the opportunity, or did they come to you, or how did since you love the play so much, how did it come about?
This is the interesting thing. And, a lot of times you shouldn't really look too closely at how theater happens.
I can withdraw the question if you want me to.
Sausage gets made, oh dear. It actually turned out that Gremlin Theatre, which not only owns their space, as you know, but then they also rent it out to other theater groups in between their productions. They had an open spot in March. They wanted to do a show. Peter Hansen, the artistic director, got cast at the Guthrie in Mousetrap. So he's like, I can't do a show. Their associate artistic director, Ellen Fenster, said, I'm busy with other stuff. I can't do it. So he said, let me talk to Craig. And I think a few other people. So anyway, so there were just a lot of text messages that went back and forth. And when I said, like, well, how about Proof? This is just me thinking, like, what play can I quickly do in a short timeline that I feel I know that hasn't been seen and that would meet sort of all of the criteria. Can we do it? Can we do it well? Does it need to be seen again? And Ellen leapt at it and she said, absolutely, let's do it. I love that play. Peter said, absolutely, let's do it. I love that play. So then we went on a fairly quick trajectory, which often happens with Gremlin and a lot of our other kind of smaller theaters in the Twin Cities, which is a beautiful thing. Like, things can just happen in response to opportunities. And it's like a great thing. So, we've just heard from so many people. It's just like, why doesn't people do that play more? It's really good. We really love doing it. When we announced auditions, of course, we were just like flooded with people who wanted on board with it too. You know, it's really humbling and really touching how many theater artists have this play as kind of a touch point in their life. Well,
and we're fortunate that you're in the Twin Cities, because what you just said is, I think, often happens. You come up as a person to talk to. What about, you're a resource, whether you intend to be or not. I think you are a resource for other creative people who think, well, who could do that? Oh, who could do that without making it difficult to deal with? Craig Johnson could pull that off, and that's the magician that you
Oh, well,
are.
thank you for that too. I just call it just like, well, can we land the plane? Can we land the plane safely? Which I've used as a metaphor for a long time, but now it becomes surprisingly prescient. These.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Dear.
Well, it's fascinating to hear that, because we don't usually know how a production comes about, and there you are. There's how this one came about.
And there is, of course, as you know, some theaters that plan a whole season and plan like a year or two out. Or the bigger the theater, the more that happens. But I like places like Gremlin because there's a little bit of a kind of like improvisational or rock and roll kind of energy. It's just like, we're not going to be fussy about it. You're not going to get a lot of extras with it, but we're going to do the play, and we're going to get the people that we think are right, and we're just going to do it. We're going to do it now, and it'll open in 3 months. Everybody, we're running in this direction.
Well, Proof opens tonight at the Gremlin Theatre. You can get your tickets at gremlintheater.org. Theater is spelled R-E in this instance. We are going to take a break here, and we're going to have more with Craig Johnson and his directing of Proof at the Gremlin Theatre. If you are not following us on Blue Sky, you should be following us for ticket giveaways to shows happening in the Twin Cities, as well as for more progressive news and analysis. You can find us on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org. And we do have lots of a partner with Live Nation. So we give those tickets away. So be sure to follow us there. So right now, we're going to take that break, support our sponsors. More to come on The Gaily Show. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. I'm John Parker. Jim Pounds, executive producer of The Gaily Show, joining me in studio. We're talking with Craig Johnson, genius-level director who is currently directing the show Proof at the Gremlin Theatre. We're going to have a link in the show notes and on our website for you to get your tickets. Opens tonight, March 7th, and runs through March 30th. Craig, you were saying about I would use timelessness of this show, because I think there's something about being an individual who maybe kind of feels, I don't know if oppressed is the right word, but sort of restricted by your family, and having this like specialness that maybe people don't necessarily see. For Catherine, it's, oh, she does some math herself. And there's that Hal character who's just good enough at math to recognize, oh, Catherine, you've got something going on here. And for me, I think that's the special part of this play, is having that one person find something like, hey, there's something going on here that's more to you than you may realize.
Right. A lot of times when we're looking at plays, we think of like an Aristotle kind of model from the Poetics. Oh dear, where are we going with this? I know. There's that, like, you got your exposition scenes, the conflict starts, the complications rise, you hit a climax, and then you have a resolution or something. But another way that I think is really interesting and really appropriate for this play is like what we usually call the polarity model. And that's the idea that characters don't change, people don't change, but instead, what happens in the action of the play is a central character. When you find out who that is, obviously it's Catherine in this, that everyone else and all of the incidents prod her to become, in ways that are good and not so good, to become her truest self. So the action of the play is a revealing of, as I said before, sort of a true identity. So it goes from one pole, where you might have someone who is isolated, depressed, and on their own, to someone who has re-engaged with the world and become their best possible self.
Hmm.
And to see that happen is just such a moving and inspiring story. And having all of these, the other people in the play fumbling around, trying to help, a lot of
Mhm.
times making a complete mess of it. And sometimes succeeding, but nevertheless, you just have this like baby chick, as it were, sort of pecking its way through the eggshell, and we have new life and a beautiful sense of creation that is just coming into the world.
Wow. Can you tell us about the cast? As a actor, we always love to get our names mentioned for nothing. So can you tell us who's in the cast?
Maggie Kramer is playing Catherine, and she is someone that I really didn't know her at all. We've never worked together. I've maybe seen her just in one thing beforehand. Amazingly, she's someone, when the audition notice came up, I had a friend who was a stage manager who recommended her, another person who had acted with her who recommended her, and another director contacted me, and they and also said, like, have you seen Maggie Kramer? She'd be great in this part.
Wow.
It's just like, what? Who gets recommended, unsolicited recommendations like
Nobody does.
No, I know. It's so irritating, isn't it? It's wonderful, and she's lived up to that little hype that came in through the back way right there. Colson Eldridge is playing Hal, and he and I acted together in Rope at Gremlin Theatre that performed this last summer, so it's great to be back with him again. Let's see, Sarah Furness is playing Claire, and she's someone who has auditioned for me a couple times. It hasn't worked out yet, so it's like a especially beautiful thing when someone walks in and you think like, this is it. This is the show we should work on together. This is it. So that's really beautiful. And Patrick O'Brien is playing Robert, the father, who I've worked with a couple times in the past. People may know him, but he's also had a Hollywood career as well. They might know him from Saved by the Bell as Mr. Dewey, the math teacher on there. So he was a reoccurring character on that show.
Oh.
So it's great to have him on board. Yeah.
You've
perfect.
tapped into John's 90s perspective.
Right. Well, it isn't the funny thing, because Robert is the character that he's playing is a math genius.
Yeah.
So it's just like more math teachers.
Right.
For Patrick.
It was preordained.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. That's the group. Yeah.
How long is it? It has an intermission, I'm sure. How long of a play is it?
It's standard length. So Act 1 is an hour, intermission, and then like 50 minutes for Act 2.
And that's such a great location, that Gremlin space, with the restaurant, or bar, I guess it's a bar maybe that's there.
Right. Yeah.
It's very social, and it's
Lake Monster Brewery, just like right across the hallway too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We can arrive.
You can make you can make a whole evening of it, and it's really easy, and lots of parking, and it's really, you can't beat it. It's centrally located in the midway there, and
you just got
it's
just right on 94, right off the Cretan Vandalia exit. So it's just like easy for just about everyone, I think.
That's fantastic. And what does Peter think he's doing at the Guthrie? What is his big deal now? What's he doing?
I know. So he's doing the Mousetrap. That's in rehearsal right now. I think it's going to open in another week or two or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's playing Giles in the Mousetrap, which is a role that I played decades ago too. So I was giving him a hard time, and I played it for like 16 weeks or something like that. It was just, really a long time. So
wow.
So that's kind of funny. And the funny thing about Proof is he played Hal in the Park Square production, like some years ago.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So,
yes.
Yeah. And
I can see him doing that.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember if I saw that production or not, but he's such a classic leading man. Now I haven't seen him in several years, so I'm assuming that's how I have him pictured in my mind. And don't change my opinion.
Yes. Hold on to that, because he has held on to those great matinee idol looks.
Great looks. Yeah. Wow.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for joining us here on The Gaily Show.
Thank you. It's really been my pleasure. Great chatting.
Definitely. So you can buy your tickets for Proof at Gremlin Theatre. That's RE We've included that link in our show notes and on our website. Folks, have a great afternoon. The Matt McNeil Show is coming up next. Stay tuned for Native Roots Radio. After that, we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for Pride on AM 950, the best of for us. Twin Cities Pride Amplified at 3 p.m., The Illegal Trans Woman at 4 p.m., and the Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony at 5 p.m. For now, keep it queer, America.